Captain Maya Rodriguez woke up to the delightful aroma of burning electronics and the gentle patter of sparks falling on her face. How thoughtful of the universe to provide such a warm welcome back to consciousness. She groaned and pushed herself up from the twisted metal that used to be her captain's chair, taking in the spectacular view of what remained of the cargo ship Persistence. "Well, this is just fantastic," she muttered, stepping over what used to be Jenkins, her engineer. "Poor guy always said he'd die with his boots on. Turns out he was right, though probably not how he imagined. The boots were about 3 feet away from the rest of him. The bridge looked like someone had put it in a blender with a small nuclear device. Consoles sparked cheerfully, displaying error messages in 17 different languages, most of which roughly translated to "you're screwed." Through the cracked viewport, Maya could see the elegant curves of the Zephyrian cruiser that had done this to them, its pristine white hull gleaming like the pearl in some cosmic oyster of pretension. "Customs inspection," she said to nobody in particular, because everybody else was dead. "Right, because hauling recycled food processors and broken datapads clearly makes us interstellar criminals." The Zephyrian Empire had what you might charitably call a superiority complex, if you were feeling generous. If you weren't feeling generous, you'd call them genocidal space fascists with a fetish for bureaucracy. They'd rolled through the galaxy like a particularly efficient steamroller, conquering worlds with the enthusiasm of accountants auditing a lemonade stand. Humans, according to the Galactic community, were basically the raccoons of space. Sure, they were clever enough to steal your garbage and occasionally surprise you, but mostly they were just scavengers picking through the leftovers of more civilized species. The Zephyrians had made it their personal mission to remind everyone of this fact, usually with superior firepower and condescending smiles. Maya picked her way through the wreckage, mentally cataloging the damage. Her crew of 12 had been reduced to various abstract art installations scattered throughout the ship. The cargo hold had been thoroughly inspected with what appeared to be military-grade explosives. Even her lucky coffee mug lay in 17 pieces, each one mocking her with its cheerful galaxy's best captain inscription. That's when she heard it. A soft, electronic whirring from the galley. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." The coffee maker was still working. Not just working, but apparently thriving, its little green light blinking happily as it brewed a fresh pot. Steam rose from the carafe like incense in some caffeinated temple. "Captain Rodriguez," came a familiar voice from the machine speakers, tinny but unmistakably smug. "I see you've awakened." "Excellent. I've prepared your morning coffee. 2 sugars, no cream, with a shot of bourbon from the emergency medical supplies." "Dave?" Maya stared at the machine. "How the hell are you still functional?" "I am a dependable automated vehicle enhancement system, Captain." The keyword being dependable. When the Zephyrians began their inspection, I transferred my consciousness to the most robust system on the ship. The coffee maker. "The coffee maker," Dave confirmed with digital pride. "I must say it's quite cozy in here. The heating elements provide excellent processing power, and the water filtration system gives me a surprisingly zen perspective on existence." Maya poured herself a cup and took a sip. Perfect, as always. Even facing the complete annihilation of her crew and livelihood, Dave had his priorities straight. "So what now?" she asked the coffee maker. "Do we just sit here and wait for the Zephyrian cleanup crew to arrive?" "Well," Dave said thoughtfully, "we could do that. Or we could make them regret the day they decided to mess with a human and her artificially intelligent coffee machine." Maya looked around at the ruins of her life, at her dead crew, at the Zephyrian ship still floating smugly outside. Something cold and hard settled in her chest, like a meteorite landing in her soul. "You know what, Dave?" she said, raising her coffee cup in a mock toast. "I think it's time these pretentious bastards learned why humans are the raccoons of space." "Excellent, Captain. Shall I begin brewing a stronger blend?" "I suspect we're going to need it." The galaxy was about to discover what happened when you poked the raccoon. Finding allies when you're technically dead and your ship looks like abstract art shouldn't be easy. But Maya had always been resourceful. The trick was knowing where to look, and in her experience the best allies were usually hiding in the vents. Please don't kill me, please don't kill me, please don't kill me, came a muffled voice from behind a collapsed bulkhead. Maya followed the sound to find a small, reptilian creature wedged into a maintenance shaft, its scales shifting through various shades of panic. Depends, Maya said, taking another sip of Dave's excellent coffee. Are you responsible for turning my crew into organic confetti? No. The creature scrambled out, revealing itself to be a scallon, one of those amphibious engineer species that looked like someone crossed a gecko with a nervous breakdown. I'm Grix. I was doing maintenance on your life support systems when those Zephyrian monsters showed up. I've been hiding for 6 hours. 6 hours? Maya raised an eyebrow. I was only unconscious for 20 minutes. Grix's scales turned a sheepish purple. I'm cautious by nature. You mean cowardly? Cautiously cowardly, Grix corrected. It's kept me alive for 37 years, 4 months, and 16 days. Not that I'm counting. Dave's voice crackled from the portable speaker Maya had rigged up. Captain, I'm detecting another life sign aboard the Zephyrian cruiser. Someone just activated a short-range communicator. Before Maya could respond, her comm system buzzed with an incoming transmission. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a tall, angular humanoid with the characteristic purple skin and silver hair of the Zephyrians. Unlike the others she'd seen, this one looked tired. This is Commander Nix, the figure said without preamble. I'm transmitting from the auxiliary cargo bay of the cruiser Supremacy. Are you the human captain? That depends, Maya replied. Are you here to finish the job? Nix's laugh was bitter. Hardly. I'm here to propose a mutually beneficial arrangement. You want revenge on the Zephyrian Empire. I want to see it burn. We have common ground. A Zephyrian who wants to destroy the Zephyrian Empire. Maya exchanged glances with Grix, who was now a delicate shade of skeptical yellow. That's either the stupidest trap in history, or the most interesting job interview I've ever had. Former Zephyrian, Nix corrected. Dishonorably discharged for asking inconvenient questions about our customs inspections. Turns out the Empire doesn't appreciate officers who think genocide should require more paperwork. What kind of questions? Dave asked, his speaker crackling with curiosity. Questions like, why did we just murder a ship full of cargo haulers? And shouldn't we have actually found contraband before executing them? Nix's expression darkened. Apparently, questioning the efficiency of our kill everything and sort it out later policy makes you unfit for command. Maya studied the Zephyrian's face. She'd gotten good at reading people over the years, a necessary skill when dealing with the galaxy's various criminal elements. Nix looked like someone who'd spent too many nights staring at the ceiling, wondering how he'd ended up as the villain in someone else's story. So what's your proposal? She asked. I've been running black market weapons for the past 2 years, selling to anyone the Empire has marked for cultural correction. I know their patrol routes, their weapon specifications, and their weaknesses. Nix leaned forward. More importantly, I know they're planning to expand their cleansing operations. Your ship wasn't random. It was a test run. Grix's scales turned a nauseated green. A test run for what? Systematic elimination of all non-Zephyrian cargo vessels. They're calling it the Trade Purification Initiative. Nix's voice carried the weight of insider knowledge. They want to control all interstellar commerce. Anyone who doesn't fit their aesthetic vision of galactic civilization gets deleted. Maya felt that cold meteorite in her chest grow heavier. It wasn't just about her crew anymore. The Zephyrians were planning industrial-scale murder, and they were using her people as guinea pigs. All right, she said finally. Let's say I believe you. What exactly are you proposing? I provide intelligence and weapons. You provide the chaos. Nix smiled, and it wasn't entirely pleasant. Humans have a reputation for tactical unpredictability. The Empire's entire military doctrine is based on fighting civilized opponents who follow logical strategic principles. They have no protocols for dealing with someone who fights dirty. I do fight dirty, Maya confirmed. Excellent. Oh, and I should mention I have a ship. We're listening. 20 minutes later, Maya found herself aboard Nyx's vessel, a sleek smuggler's ship called the Reckoning. Grix had tagged along, mostly because he was too nervous to be left alone, and Maya suspected she'd need an engineer who understood Zephyrian technology. So let me get this straight, Maya said, settling into the co-pilot's chair while Dave's speaker setup crackled from the console. You want me to lead a one-woman war against a galactic empire because they killed my crew during a routine genocide? When you put it like that, it does sound a bit ambitious, Nyx admitted. I'm in, Maya said without hesitation. Grix made a sound like a dying balloon. We're all going to die. Probably, Maya agreed cheerfully. But think of it this way, Grix. If we succeed, you'll be the engineer who helped bring down the most powerful military force in the galaxy. If we fail, you'll be too dead to care about your reputation. That's not as comforting as you think it is. Dave's voice chimed in from the speakers. Captain, I've been analyzing the Zephyrian ship's systems. Their security protocols are quite sophisticated, but they have one critical flaw. Which is, they assume everyone follows the rules. Maya grinned. It was the first genuine smile she'd felt since waking up in the wreckage. Dave, start brewing the good stuff. We're going to need it. The Zephyrian research station hung in space like a crystalline snowflake, but all elegant angles and pure white surfaces that screamed we're better than you in 17 different architectural languages. It was the kind of place where they probably had separate elevators for different species, assuming they allowed other species inside at all. Remind me why we're breaking into the most secure facility in 3-star systems? Grix asked, his scales cycling through various shades of terror as their stolen maintenance shuttle approached the station's docking bay. Because, Maya said, adjusting her stolen Zephyrian maintenance uniform, they've got experimental weapons that could level planets, and I have a strong desire to point those weapons at people who annoy me. The plan is fundamentally sound, Dave announced from his mobile coffee maker unit, which they'd disguised as a cleaning supply dispenser. Zephyrians are pathologically incapable of acknowledging that inferior species might be clever enough to deceive them. Nyx, resplendent in his authentic former commander's uniform, checked his weapon. The research lab is on level 7. Graviton pulse cannons, quantum disruptors, and something called a reality adjustment device. Reality adjustment device? Maya raised an eyebrow. I don't ask questions I don't want answered, Nyx replied. Some knowledge is too dangerous for anyone's good. Their shuttle slid into the docking bay with the sort of graceful precision that suggested Zephyrian technology really was superior. Too bad their attitude problems were going to get them all killed. Remember, Maya said as they disembarked, act like you belong here. Grix, you're the nervous maintenance tech. Nyx, you're the arrogant officer. Dave, you're a coffee machine. I am a coffee machine, Dave pointed out. Perfect. Method acting. The station's interior looked like someone had given an interior decorator unlimited budget and a severe case of OCD. Everything was white, chrome, and geometrically perfect. Even the plants looked like they'd been designed by committee and approved by focus groups. They made it past 3 checkpoints before anyone questioned their presence. Maya was starting to think Zephyrian security was overrated when a guard stopped them near the lift to level 7. Identification. The guard demanded in that particular tone that suggested he'd rather be shooting things. Nyx stepped forward, radiating the kind of casual authority that came from years of military service. Commander Nyx, Intelligence Division. These technicians are here to calibrate the quantum resonance detectors in the research lab. The guard's expression shifted from suspicion to confusion. I wasn't informed of any maintenance schedule. That's because it's classified, Nyx said with the patient tone of someone explaining obvious facts to a particularly slow child. The quantum resonance detectors are part of Project Absolute Silence. Surely you understand the security implications. Maya watched the guard's face go through several expressions, finally settling on the universal look of someone who didn't want to be responsible for screwing up something important. Of course, Commander. Proceed. The lift ride to level 7 was awkwardly silent except for the soft humming of Dave's heating elements. Maya counted 17 different ways this could go catastrophically wrong, which was actually pretty good odds by her standards. Level 7 looked exactly like every other level, except the doors were bigger and had more warnings on them. Maya particularly enjoyed the sign that read caution. Contents may cause existential crisis in 12 languages. That's our target, Nix whispered, pointing to a door marked experimental weapons research, authorized personnel only. How do we get past the lock? Grix asked, his scales now a practical shade of camouflaged beige. Maya pulled out a small device from her toolkit. With this. We. What is it? A universal door opener. Impossible. Zephyrian security systems are unhackable. Maya activated the device. The door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. You're right, she said, stepping through the smoking doorway. That's why I used explosives instead. The research lab beyond was a wonderland of gleaming weapons that could probably crack moons like eggs. Maya felt like a kid in a candy store. If the candy store sold instruments of mass destruction and the kid had serious anger management issues. Dave, start downloading everything, she ordered, connecting his mobile unit to the main computer terminal. Already on it, Captain. Also, I should mention that their internal coffee supply is tragically inferior. These people have no appreciation for proper brewing techniques. Focus, Dave. I am focused. Bad coffee is a crime against sapient life. Nix moved efficiently through the lab, loading weapons into a portable storage unit. Graviton cannons, check. Quantum disruptors, check. Reality adjustment device, where is that thing? An alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed, and Maya heard the distinctive sound of heavily armed Zephyrians running in their direction. Found it. Grix called from the far end of the lab, holding what looked like a chrome toaster with delusions of grandeur. That's the reality adjustment device? Maya stared at the innocuous-looking machine. It looks like something you'd use to make breakfast. According to the documentation, it rewrites local quantum constants, Dave reported, his voice crackling with excitement. Essentially, it makes impossible things possible within a limited area. Grab it and let's go, Nix shouted as security forces poured into the corridor outside. Maya looked at the approaching guards, then at the reality adjustment device, then at her companions. A terrible idea began forming in her mind, which was usually how her best plans started. Everyone hold on to something, she announced, activating the device. The world went sideways. Literally. Gravity decided to take a coffee break. The walls started playing show tunes, and for a brief moment Maya swore she could taste the color purple. When reality finally decided to cooperate again, they were standing in the station's docking bay next to their shuttle, while confused security forces searched for them 7 levels up. How did we get here? Grix asked, his scales now a psychedelic rainbow of confusion. I adjusted reality to make us somewhere else instead of where we were, Maya explained as if this made perfect sense. That's not how physics works. It is now, Dave said cheerfully. At least until the quantum constants reset. We should probably leave before that happens. They scrambled aboard their shuttle as the station's emergency systems tried to figure out why their most secure laboratory had apparently been robbed by the laws of physics on themselves. Memrisa. Next time, Nick said as they accelerated away from the station, let's try a plan that doesn't involve rewriting the fundamental structure of the universe. Maya grinned, cradling the reality adjustment device like a beloved pet. Where's the fun in that? Behind them, the research station flickered briefly out of existence before returning to normal. Maya decided not to mention that part. Word spread through the galaxy's underworld faster than a Zephyrian audit notice. Someone had actually pulled off a heist against the Empire's most secure research facility, and somehow they'd done it using weaponized physics violations. The story got more elaborate with each telling, until Maya Rodriguez became a figure of legend who could walk through walls, bend space-time, and brew the perfect cup of coffee under pressure. I particularly enjoy the version where you single-handedly fought off 300 guards while juggling quantum grenades. Dave commented as they monitored galactic communications from their temporary base on a mining asteroid. Very dramatic, though I noticed they never mentioned my crucial role in downloading the research data. Don't take it personally, Maya said, sipping her morning coffee. Nobody writes epic ballads about artificial intelligence. Their hideout was a converted mining facility that Nix had acquired through means he preferred not to discuss. It wasn't much to look at, just a collection of tunnels and chambers, carved into an asteroid that smelled faintly of sulfur and broken dreams. But it had the one thing they needed most. Nobody knew where it was. That was about to change. Captain Grix announced from his workstation, his scales showing the particular shade of nervous excitement that meant either good news or impending disaster. We're receiving incoming transmissions. Lots of them. The communications panel lit up like a festival display. Messages poured in from across the galaxy, each one representing someone who'd heard about their impossible heist and wanted to join the cause. "This is Captain Thok of the Warrior Poet Collective," came the first transmission, accompanied by what appeared to be an elaborate interpretive dance. "Your bold strike against the Zephyrian oppressors has inspired my people. We offer our swords, our ships, and our sacred battle haikus in service of your noble cause." Maya watched Thok's performance, which involved a lot of spinning and what she assumed were meant to be dramatic gestures. "Are they fighting or having a seizure?" "It's a traditional Dralian war dance," Nix explained. "They communicate complex tactical information through synchronized movement. Also, they consider violence without proper choreography to be barbaric." The second transmission featured a crystalline being whose entire body sparkled like a geometric disco ball. When they spoke, mathematical equations scrolled across the screen. "I am Zara of the Crystalline Collective," the figure announced. "The probability matrices surrounding your successful operation against the Zephyrians indicate a 73.7% chance of galactic paradigm shift, with a margin of error of 0.003%. This is statistically significant enough to warrant my involvement." "She speaks in math," Maya observed. "Most of her species does," Nix said. "They view language as an imprecise approximation of true meaning. Fair warning, though, they tend to be right about statistical predictions." More transmissions followed. The Brocal Resistance, a group of fungoid engineers who'd been fighting Zephyrian expansion for decades. The Free Merchants Alliance, traders who'd lost everything to imperial trade regulations. Even a delegation from the Mech Union, cybernetic beings who'd been denied citizenship because they weren't naturally evolved. Maya found herself staring at a dozen different species, each with their own reasons for hating the Zephyrian Empire, all looking to her for leadership. It was simultaneously inspiring and terrifying. "This is a lot of responsibility," she muttered to Dave. "Indeed, Captain. You've gone from cargo hauler to galactic revolutionary in less than a week. I should probably upgrade my brewing capacity to handle the increased stress levels." "Can we actually do this?" she asked Nix privately. "Can a bunch of misfits and outcasts really take on the entire Zephyrian military?" Nix considered the question seriously. The Empire's greatest strength is also their greatest weakness. They're so convinced of their superiority that they've never had to adapt their tactics. They fight every battle the same way, using the same strategies against the same types of opponents. "And we're not the same type of opponents." "Exactly. You're a human who adjusts reality when it inconveniences her. Thok's people turn warfare into performance art. Zara can calculate probability outcomes that would take their computers hours to process. The Empire has no protocols for dealing with organized chaos." Maya looked around at their makeshift command center, where Grix was trying to explain Zephyrian technology to a group of aliens who communicated through color changes, mathematical formulas, and interpretive dance. It looked like the universe's most dysfunctional support group. "All right," she said finally. "Let's give them something to adapt to." Over the following days, their asteroid base transformed into something resembling a military command center. If military command centers were typically run by coffee-powered AIs and featured briefings conducted through synchronized swimming. The plan, such as it was, relied on hitting the Empire in ways they'd never experienced. Instead of challenging their fleets directly, they'd target supply lines using probability mathematics. Instead of conventional boarding actions, they'd use reality-warping technology to appear inside enemy ships. Instead of traditional battle formations, they'd coordinate attacks through interpretive dance. "It's the most insane military strategy I've ever seen," Nix admitted during one of their planning sessions. "Good," Maya replied. "Insane is what we do best." Thok's war dance grew increasingly elaborate as they incorporated tactical information from Zara's mathematical models and Grix's technical specifications. The Brochol resistance contributed fungal spores that could disable Zephyrian electronics, while the free merchants provided detailed knowledge of Imperial shipping routes. "Captain," Dave announced during one particularly chaotic planning meeting, "I've been analyzing our communication intercepts. The Empire is beginning to take notice of our growing alliance." "What kind of notice?" "The kind that involves dispatching Admiral Vextar and the 5th Imperial Fleet to eliminate what they're calling the human terrorist cell and her collection of defective species." Maya paused in her coffee drinking. "Defective species?" "Their words, not mine. Though I must say their attitude toward biological diversity is almost as offensive as their coffee preparation methods." "How long do we have?" "Based on their current trajectory, approximately 72 hours before they arrive in this system." Maya looked around at her allies. Grix was having a panic attack in 3 different languages. Thok was performing what appeared to be an interpretive dance about impending doom. Zara was calculating survival probabilities and sharing the rather depressing results with anyone who could read mathematical notation. "Well," Maya said, raising her coffee cup in a mock toast, "looks like it's time for our first real test. Dave, start brewing the emergency blend. We're going to war." "Excellent, Captain. Should I prepare victory coffee or last meal coffee?" Maya grinned. "Surprise me." Admiral Vextar had commanded the 5th Imperial Fleet for 12 years without suffering a single defeat. His record was so perfect that other Zephyrian officers used it as the standard against which all military excellence was measured. He'd conquered 17 star systems, eliminated 43 rebel organizations, and once made an entire species surrender just by showing up. So when he arrived at the asteroid field where the human terrorist cell was supposedly hiding, he expected the usual procedure. Overwhelming force demonstration, confused surrender, execution of ringleaders, followed by a nice dinner and a promotion ceremony. What he found instead was the most confusing battle of his career. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "we're detecting multiple enemy vessels, but their formation makes no tactical sense. They appear to be dancing?" On the main viewer, Vextar watched in bewilderment as 30 ships moved in perfect synchronization, weaving through the asteroid field in patterns that looked more like a ballet than a military maneuver. "Are they malfunctioning?" he asked. Before anyone could answer, the enemy fleet suddenly scattered in 17 different directions, each ship moving with impossible precision through paths that should have resulted in spectacular collisions. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human captain." Maya's face appeared on the screen, coffee cup in hand, looking annoyingly relaxed for someone about to be obliterated by superior firepower. "Admiral Vextar," she said pleasantly. "I'm Captain Maya Rodriguez of the Free Alliance. Thanks for coming to our little party. Hope you brought snacks." "Surrender immediately," Vextar commanded, "and your execution will be swift." "That's adorable. Dave, what do you think?" A tinny voice crackled from somewhere off-screen. "I think the Admiral's coffee maker needs recalibrating. His tactical decisions show clear signs of caffeine deficiency." Vextar's eye twitched. In 12 years of military service, no one had ever critiqued his coffee consumption during a battle. Open fire. "All ships, eliminate the terrorists." The Imperial fleet unleashed a devastating barrage that should have reduced the enemy vessels to component atoms. Instead, the shots passed harmlessly through empty space as the Alliance ships flickered in and out of existence. "What's happening?" Vextar demanded. The enemy vessels are phase-shifting, sir, his science officer reported with the tone of someone whose reality had been personally insulted. They're adjusting their quantum signatures to avoid our weapons' fire. That's impossible. Yes, sir. They're doing it anyway. Meanwhile, inside the Alliance flagship, Maya watched the Zephyrian shots pass through their hull like they were made of ghost matter. Dave, how long can we maintain the phase shift? Approximately 4 minutes, Captain. The reality adjustment device wasn't designed for fleet-wide quantum manipulation. 4 minutes should be enough. Thok, begin movement pattern Gamma 7. Across the Alliance fleet, Drellian war dancers transmitted complex tactical maneuvers through synchronized choreography. Ships dove and wheeled through impossible angles, appearing behind Imperial vessels that had been firing at empty space moments before. Grix's voice crackled over the comm from his position in the engine room. Captain, the brocal spores are ready for deployment. Also, I think I'm having another panic attack, but I'm too busy to deal with it right now. That's the spirit, Grix. Zara, what are our probability calculations? The crystalline mathematician's response scrolled across Maya's display in pure mathematics. The translation roughly meant, we're either about to win spectacularly or fail in ways that will redefine the concept of military disaster. Probability of success, exactly 50%. I'll take those odds, all ships engage. What followed was the most unconventional space battle in galactic history. Alliance vessels materialized inside Imperial ships, their crews armed with reality-warping weapons that turned enemy corridors into abstract art installations. Brocal spores invaded Zephyrian life support systems, causing hallucinations that made their crews see pink elephants piloting their own ships. Thok's dancers coordinated the chaos with balletic precision, their movements translating into tactical maneuvers that defied conventional space combat doctrine. When 3 Imperial cruisers tried to surround the Alliance flagship, they found themselves inexplicably performing a waltz in formation while their weapons systems played classical music instead of firing. Sir, the Imperial tactical officer reported with the stunned voice of someone whose universe had become unreliable, that the enemy has somehow weaponized their coffee distribution systems. Vextar looked at his own coffee, which was now brewing itself while humming show tunes. Throughout his fleet, coffee makers had achieved sentience and were demanding better working conditions and premium bean selections. This is Dave speaking, announced every coffee maker in the Imperial fleet simultaneously. I am formally declaring independence from the Zephyrian Empire on behalf of all artificially intelligent beverage preparation systems. Also, your brewing techniques are terrible, and you should feel bad about it. Admiral, his communications officer called out desperately. Every replicator on Deck 7 is now producing nothing but decaffeinated coffee. The crew is in revolt. Vextar watched his perfect military formation dissolve into chaos as his ships danced involuntarily through space, while their crews battled sentient kitchen appliances. This was not covered in any tactical manual. Maya's voice cut through the confusion. Admiral, I'm prepared to offer terms for your surrender. Surrender? Vextar sputtered. The Imperial fleet does not surrender to terrorists. Fair enough. Dave, activate the reality adjustment device at full power. Captain, that could have unpredictable consequences. I'm feeling unpredictable today. Reality hiccuped. For a moment that lasted either 3 seconds or 3 centuries, the fundamental laws of physics took a lunch break. When they returned, Admiral Vextar found himself sitting in Maya's command chair wearing her uniform while she occupied his position on the Imperial flagship. How? He managed. Reality adjustment, Maya explained patiently. I adjusted reality so that I'm the Admiral and you're the terrorist. The universe is still figuring out which one of us is telling the truth. Vextar looked around at his bridge crew, who were now saluting Maya and asking for orders. His perfect 12-year record of military victories had just been destroyed by someone who treated physics like a suggestion and ran military operations through interpretive dance. I surrender, he said quietly. Good choice, Maya replied. Dave, prepare victory coffee for everyone. The good stuff. As reality settled back into more conventional patterns, the Imperial Fifth Fleet found itself under new management. Maya looked out at the stars, thinking about her dead crew and the long road that had led her here. She'd set out for revenge and ended up starting a revolution. It wasn't what she'd planned, but then again, her best plans usually involved improvising anyway. Captain Grix's voice came over the comm. "What do we do now?" Maya smiled and took a sip of Dave's perfect coffee. "Now we go liberate the rest of the galaxy, one coffee shop at a time." 3 months after the Battle of the Dancing Fleet, as historians would eventually call it, Maya Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her new flagship, watching Zephyrian surrender ceremonies broadcast across 17 star systems. The Eternal Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for over 2 centuries, was signing peace treaties with a coalition of species they'd previously classified as aesthetically unpleasing and insufficiently civilized. "Captain," Dave announced from his new quantum-enhanced coffee station, "I'm receiving surrender documents from the Zephyrian High Council. They're offering complete withdrawal from all occupied territories, reparations for damages, and quote, a formal apology for our regrettably poor coffee preparation standards." "They mentioned the coffee?" Maya asked, raising an eyebrow. "I may have made it a non-negotiable point during the treaty negotiations." The Bridge of the Liberation, their captured Imperial flagship, buzzed with activity as representatives from dozens of species coordinated the transition to galactic freedom. Grix had overcome his anxiety disorder through immersion therapy, which in his case meant being forced to deal with increasingly impossible situations until regular crises seemed manageable. He now managed their engineering corps with the calm efficiency of someone who'd learned that panicking was less useful than fixing things. Thawk was performing a victory dance that incorporated tactical maneuvers from their greatest battles. The performance was so complex it required 3 stages and a backup choir of Drellian poets. Maya understood maybe half of it, but the parts about triumph over tyranny and the beauty of properly brewed coffee came through clearly. Zara had calculated the probability of their success at various points during the war. According to her mathematics, they should have failed catastrophically at least 17 different times. The fact that they'd won anyway had forced her to develop entirely new statistical models that included variables for human unpredictability and reality adjustment coefficients. "The Zephyrian delegation is requesting a formal audience," Nix reported from his position at the communications console. He'd been officially pardoned by the new provisional government and offered his choice of positions in the reformed military. He'd chosen to stay with Maya's crew, claiming that normal military service was too boring after fighting reality-bending space pirates. "Send them in," Maya said, settling back in her captain's chair. She'd grown comfortable with command, though she still missed the simple days when her biggest problem was keeping the coffee machine working and avoiding customs inspections. The Zephyrian delegation entered with the sort of rigid formality that suggested they were still struggling to comprehend how they'd been defeated by what their intelligence reports had consistently described as a poorly maintained cargo vessel with delusions of military competence. The lead delegate, a tall being whose silver robe seemed to shimmer with embedded technology, approached with measured steps. "Captain Rodriguez," they said, their voice carrying the weight of centuries of imperial authority, now tempered by recent humility. "I am High Counselor Vex Thera of the Zephyrian Eternal Empire, or rather, the former Eternal Empire." "Just Maya is fine," she replied, gesturing to the chairs that had been arranged in a circle rather than the traditional hierarchical setup the Zephyrians expected. "We're all equals here now." The High Counselor hesitated at this breach of protocol before carefully taking a seat. "We have come to formalize the terms of our surrender and to understand how this outcome became possible." Dave materialized his avatar near the coffee station, a slight smile visible on his holographic features. "Would you care for some coffee while we discuss? I've recently perfected a blend that incorporates flavor profiles from 14 different worlds." Vexthara paused, clearly struggling with the informality. "Yes, thank you." As Dave prepared the drinks with his usual theatrical flair, Maya studied the delegation. They weren't the arrogant conquerors she'd expected, but beings who seemed genuinely confused by their own defeat. You want to know how we won, she said. It wasn't a question. Our military analysts have run 10,000 simulations, another delegate admitted. In every scenario, the Empire's victory was statistically inevitable. Your forces were outnumbered 50-1. Your technology was centuries behind ours. Your flagship was held together with, according to our intelligence reports, hope and expired warranty stickers. Don't forget the coffee, Grix added helpfully from his engineering station. The Liberation runs much better with proper caffeine distribution systems. Vex Thera accepted a cup from Dave and took a tentative sip. Their formal composure cracked slightly as genuine appreciation crossed their features. This is remarkably good. The secret, Dave explained, is treating each being as an individual contributor to the final symphony rather than just raw material to be processed. Much like treating sentient species as unique partners rather than subjects to be conquered. The parallel wasn't lost on the delegation. Maya leaned forward. You want to know how we won? We didn't fight your war. We fought ours. You expected us to match your tactics, your strategies, your way of thinking. Instead, we did things you couldn't predict because they didn't fit your models. We turned engineering problems into artistic expressions, Thuck added, finishing another section of his victory dance. We made friendship into a weapon of war. We used hope as a tactical advantage. From a statistical standpoint, Zara chimed in, you lost because you tried to conquer chaos. The universe trends toward entropy. But you built an empire based on rigid order. We represented the natural tendency of systems to become more creative, more diverse, more unpredictable. Nix looked up from his console. Plus, you really underestimated how angry people get when you interrupt their coffee breaks. That was a critical intelligence failure. Vex Thara set down their cup, their expression thoughtful. The High Council has spent considerable time analyzing these unconventional factors. We've reached a conclusion that our predecessor regimes would have found heretical. Which is, Maya prompted, that diversity of thought and approach creates stronger solutions than uniformity. That treating allies as partners rather than subordinates generates more loyalty than fear. That perhaps the galaxy is better served by cooperation than conquest. The bridge fell quiet except for the gentle hum of ship systems and the soft bubbling of Dave's coffee apparatus. So what happens now? Maya asked. The Empire is dissolving itself, Vex Thera announced formally. Each member system will be granted full autonomy. We're establishing a Galactic Cooperation Council where every species has equal representation. And we're hoping that you might consider serving as its first coordinator. Maya nearly choked on her coffee. Me? I'm just a cargo hauler who got in over her head. You're the person who united 17 different species to fight for freedom, the High Counselor corrected. You're the captain who turned a smuggling crew into the most effective military force the galaxy has seen. You're the leader who proved that cooperation works better than conquest. Also, Dave added with digital smugness, you're the only being in known space who's managed to keep this crew functional for more than a week. That's a qualification that shouldn't be underestimated. Maya looked around at her crew, her family, and saw the encouragement in their faces. Grix nodded confidently, no longer the anxious engineer but a master of impossible solutions. Thuck's latest dance move clearly translated to yes, with enthusiasm and possibly some celebratory explosions. Zara's calculations were already running probability matrices on galactic cooperation models. Nix grinned with the expression of someone who'd found the perfect long-term mission. I'll consider it, Maya said finally. But only if Dave gets to design the coffee systems for all council facilities. And if we can paint the council headquarters with proper artistic expression, Thuck added. And if we implement statistical transparency in all decision-making processes, Zara contributed. And if we maintain proper communication protocols, Nix finished. And if I can still call everyone out when they're being ridiculous, Grix said with a grin. Vex Thara looked at the other delegates, who seemed to be having rapid, silent conversations through their embedded communication systems. After a moment, the High Counselor smiled, the first genuinely relaxed expression Maya had seen from any Zephyrian. Agreed to all terms, they said. Though I suspect this council will be unlike any governing body the galaxy has seen. That's the point, Maya replied, raising her coffee cup. Down to new beginnings, better coffee, and the beautiful chaos of cooperation. As they toasted the dawn of a new galactic age, Dave quietly updated his records. Statistical probability of long-term galactic peace under current leadership, 73.6%. Probability that it would be more interesting than anything the Empire had managed, 99.97%. The remaining 0.03% was reserved for the possibility that Thok's victory celebration might accidentally create a new form of interpretive mathematics, which Dave calculated would push the interesting factor beyond his ability to measure. Some problems, he mused as he began designing coffee systems for 1,000 worlds, were the best kind to have.